We live in a busy world. So many opportunities compete for our attention.
You know, there's more programs that people often mention, better activities. Is that really the key to keeping people interested in the things of God?
Now, is the church out of touch with the latest and the greatest ways to entertain and sustain modern ministry?
For sure, people are busy. Does the church need more things for people to do? Do we need to give people more ways to serve and get involved?
How do we know when we've crossed the line from healthy ministry activity into stressful, overprogrammed ministry madness?
Do we have your attention? Stay with us on this edition of the Winning in Ministry podcast as we dig into one of the most piercing and probing conversations in modern ministry. Are we trying too hard, doing too much, and gaining too little? Keeping it simple might just be the strategic thing we've been looking for.
You're listening to the Winning in Ministry podcast, where members of the Edify Leaders Ministry coaching team share insights and inspiration they have gained as they seek to strengthen ministers for exponential impact in life and ministry. And now, here are your hosts, Ray Sanders and Tom Matthew.
Welcome to this edition of the Winning in Ministry podcast. I'm your host, Ray Sanders, and as always, I'm joined with the good-looking and debonair Tom Matthew.
Debonair, I like that. Well, on today's show, we are tackling a problem that is hiding in plain sight in ministry today: overprogramming. Not laziness, not talking about a lack of effort or a shortage of good ideas. The opposite. Too many programs, too many events, too many commitments, and underneath all of it, many ministries are busier than ever, but on the decline. Ministry leaders are working harder, burning out and giving up. They simply can't keep up with all the activity, and their congregations are right there with them.
Today, we're going to get honest about something a lot of ministers feel, but rarely say out loud. Calendars are too full. Teams are stretched. People are exhausted. And it's not clear if more is better.
Now, to help us think through the challenges of modern ministry, we've invited two seasoned leaders who've navigated these waters in their own lives and ministries. We've got Dr. Anthony Jordan and Pastor Rick Fry in the house. Gentlemen, welcome. Why don't you give our listeners a quick introduction? You've been on the podcast many times, but I would love for them to just hear about your story, how you've served, what that's kind of looked like for both of you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, been in ministry 56 years and had the privilege of pastoring 7 churches during that time. Last 20 years, we were at First Baptist Church Jinx here in Oklahoma, and just had a tremendous ministry. Just saw God do some incredible things. Been married for 51. We've got 2 kids, and one of the great blessings I had, and I know Anthony certainly knows this, you never know where you're going to be or where your children are going to be. But for 20 years, I actually had my kids and grandkids that were members of our church. And that was a joy and a blessing. They all live right here in the Jinx area, so we still live very close to them. We've got 7 grandkids, and just found out, as I said, we're going to become a new great grandpa. So excited about that. Saw our grandson graduate last night from Metro Christian Academy. So it is just a joy to be able to still get to impact lives with pastors. Since I retired, we're working with Edify Leaders just to come alongside pastors, just to know they've got somebody who loves them, encourages them, who will, if they call at 3 a.m. in the morning, you're going to ask 2 things: where are you at and what do you need? And go be there for them. So this has been a new journey in my life, but it's a fun journey, and I'm excited to be part of it.
Well, I have been in ministry for 58 years and been married 58 years. I have 2 children and 1 granddaughter, and have pastored 5 churches, and then was the leader of Oklahoma Baptist for 22 years, pastor for 28. Since retirement in 2018, I have been coaching pastors like Rick talks about. One of the great joys of life is to invest in pastors. I love them. I know where they live. I have experienced what they've experienced, and just to be a listening ear and a challenging voice in their life is a wonderful experience. And I am I preach the gathering on Wednesday nights at Quail Springs Baptist Church, and so active and have a great joy. And every once in a while, I take retirement seriously.
You haven't retired. You just retreaded. That's what I'll say. That's for sure. Well, I'm gonna start this program off with a little different twist, and I know it's going to get Dr. Jordan's attention. And I want to draw a parallel between the modern church and being overprogrammed and ice cream.
Hey, man, I'm already in.
And as I was sitting here thinking about this podcast today, I don't know how many of our listeners have had the joy. I remember in my day, family reunions and 4th of July, being the kid that got to set on the homemade ice cream as somebody churned it, and your bottom would get cold, and you just sit there anticipating what that good old homemade vanilla ice cream was going to be like. And it seems like sometimes in the modern church, we have forgotten what the core is of most ice creams, and that's this good vanilla ice cream, and that's good. But then there came Brahms, and then there came Baskin Robbins, and it's like you walk in, you got 31 different flavors, and you're overwhelmed, and you stand there in line, and you don't get any ice cream because you can't decide which ice cream you want.
I've never had that problem.
I'll take all of them. Let's go.
By the time you take a sample of every one, you're not even hungry anymore. Right. And sometimes it feels like in modern ministry, in a modern church, it's like there's just this menu. You go to some restaurants and it's like pages. I mean, you go to the Cheesecake Factory. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a book.
Yep.
It's just so much. And you could say if you read everything that's on the menu, you'll starve to death by the time. And it kind of feels that way. And it's one thing for the members to recognize it. It's another thing to be the ministry team that's trying to make it happen. Another thing is like, remember the old days whenever there was like 3 local TV stations, open up your streaming on your television today. I'm literally thousands of things you could watch, thousands. And so it feels like the modern church, a lot of modern ministry is just overprogrammed. Mm-hmm. And we want to do well. We want to be relevant. We want to, but in some ways we've become all things to all people. Mm-hmm. And it was Vince Lombardi that said, "Hey guys, this is a football." Mm-hmm. And we have to keep, and I know that I'm quoting Dr. Jordan, we got to keep the main thing, the main thing. Yep. And sometimes we've overcomplicated it, overprogrammed it. And we need to be thinking about maybe brevity is our friend. Mm-hmm. Maybe simple is where it's at. Tom Rainer wrote a book. I think it's called Simple Church. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a great book, and it's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get into the question, I do think it's worth noting that we're not saying programming is bad. Yep. I mean, we got to have programs. We got to have ways of getting people involved. But programs are tools. Tools. They are not the ministry itself. They are tools. The problem is when the tools, are you ready for this? When the tools throw a wrench into what God wants to get done in the hearts of the people that we serve. So when keeping a program alive matters more than whether it is actually helping people grows as they grow as followers of Christ, then the ministry has drifted from its true core, its true purpose, its true calling. So that's what we're calling out today.
Yeah, and what we want to get at is not just the problem, but the path forward. What does it look like to lead a church with clarity, to move people intentionally through spiritual growth, to get everyone aligned around the same mission, and to have the focus to say not what to do, like how does this fit? How do we move forward, right? Because I think the thing is, we know the problem, overprogramming. But what you do is you end up just repeating what you're seeing. Okay, they did it, so I've got to do it. Mm-hmm. And you start following other models instead of recognizing this is what I've been called to, and how do I bring simplicity to what God has called me to do?
Yeah, that's a good one right there. Mm-hmm. That's a good point you're making. Well, let's jump in with our first question, Tom. I want to ask Rick and Dr. Jordan here. When you guys look at your ministry experience, and it's vast, and you guys were successful, how did you struggle with knowing if you were doing enough? It seems like, there's always something more that could be done. But when is enough enough, at least for now? I'm not saying we just get docile. I'm not saying we just sit on our hands, but when do you know you've done enough? And what did you do to ensure your ministry wasn't overprogrammed?
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, one of the things that I learned the hard way, it's easy to get so overprogrammed, so much stuff going on. It's kind of like the tail wagging the dog rather than the dog wagging the tail. You get everything out of sync, and when that happens, uh, then when you wear your people out, you wear your staff out. So what we started doing is in our staff meeting every week, we would stop and ask those questions. What did we accomplish today? Is this ministry, is this program something that's helping us? Is it tied back to the goal and the core of who we are, our mission statement? So we were always asking that question of each other. Before we started something new, we would ask that question. Is this taking the place of something else? Is it just adding more things to do? And so one of the things that, again, and then the other thing was, are we equipping our people? Did we do what we needed to do to help them help us accomplish the purpose? And again, we have to remember, it's always about, God called us as pastors to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And, my nature is of such, I have to watch it, is that I see something needs to be done, I go do it. And so there's a lot of pastors that way, a lot of staff that way. And so we end up burning ourselves out as well as burning the church out. So for us, we were always trying to ask those questions. What's the why? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose behind it? Does it keep us to the core of our mission? And if it did, great. Sometimes we had to cut some things because we realized that we were over putting too much on the calendar.
Did you say cut? Did you say cut, Pastor?
I did. I said
Wow.
cut.
All right.
And that's an important word because usually people just add and just add. And next thing you know, you might have started off with 3 things and now you have 30 things. Why? Because you didn't take the time. And Pastor Rick, I want to hit on that. You're taking time to evaluate. That's important. Sit down as a team. Just because we've done it doesn't mean we're going to keep doing it. Just take a moment to evaluate and cut and add. So
I call it the potato principle. I have a presentation I do that shows a little boy pulling a big wheelbarrow, pulling a wheelbarrow, not pushing, pulling a wheelbarrow out of a potato field. And it's just stacked to the rim. This little kid's sweating trying to pull it out. And to me, that's a great picture of modern ministry, is that we just keep stacking potatoes on top of the cart. And what happens eventually? It's going to crumble.
Yep.
It is. Dr. J, you were going to say something.
Well, I think Rick, if you listen to what Rick had to say, I think one of the most significant things is what do you evaluate by? What is the criterion by which you evaluate? Well, what you heard him say, and I wholeheartedly agree, is that you evaluate by your vision and mission statement. Your mission ought to drive everything you do. It drives your vision. A vision that is not based on your mission isn't much of a vision, frankly.
Yeah.
So he kept, and I did the same thing both at the local church level, and that's particularly what we're focused on. And at the convention, you have to keep coming back and saying, okay, what is our mission? And if this doesn't fit within our mission, then we don't need to do it. And what is our vision? And if this, at this particular time, this may be a good thing to do at another day, but it's not what we need to do today in order to fulfill the vision that God has given us. And I think when you use that as the criteria that you decide issues over, what to keep, what to let go, frankly, you asked in the beginning, did you ever come to the place where, as you looked at things, that you struggled with whether you were doing enough? I know Rick would say the same thing. I never had that thought in my life. My question was always, okay, what do we get? We can't keep doing all this. We got to
breaks.
Yeah. So I think mission and vision ought to be the basis of which you decide, and you ought to filter everything through that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a more probing question with this in mind. what are some of the signs, indicators, or symptoms in a ministry or on a ministry team that we're starting to get over programmed? It's starting to take a toll on personal lives, families, and the ministry as a whole. What are some of the signs that our cart is loaded too full?
Well, one of the things I would see is that whether it's with your staff or it's with your church family, your volunteers, uh, I started noticing there was more absentees. You
Huh.
all of a sudden, people that were faithful and there, all of a sudden they're not there as much. I saw fatigue, and what I saw happen was many times then those people became negative.
Hmm.
You think about when you're tired. I know when I'm tired, and that's when you say things and do things that you have no business saying or doing. And so when when you over when you overstretch your people and you don't give them a break, or maybe to remind them again of the why and the vision is, as I said, you started needing more people because it was the absentees, people with fatigue, and then I just started noticing people became more negative, and those were some telltale signs for me.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that one of the ways you can tell that you're getting too much going in the church is when you look at the level of your involvement and leadership. So you find out that, okay, this leader, he's a deacon, he's chairman of a committee, and he's teaching a Sunday school Bible class, and he's leading a discipleship group. That's a pretty good sign when you've got a core group of leaders that are doing so many things, and the bulk of people aren't.
Yep.
Rick said
Doing well.
earlier that part of what your job to do is to equip the saints to do the ministry. But if you've only got a handful doing the job, you better back up. And two words that are always meaningful to me is, am what I doing? Is it strategic? And am I doing it intentionally?
Yep.
So I see my people getting worn out and negative, as Rick said. That's a great word. And I see that the same leaders are carrying the big load. It means that what we really have strategically are supposed to be doing is getting people equipped to do ministry. And that tells us we better simplify because we're not getting that job done.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I think you look at yourself and your staff and others, and you see they're at the church tons of hours. They're not taking care of their family, which is their first responsibility. Those are all just telltale signs that say, wait a minute, we're not being strategic about what we're trying to accomplish.
Let's continue on that same vein a little bit. When a ministry gets so busy, it loses its identity, right? And we've been kind of hitting on this, but how have you seen that happen? What does it look like from the inside when a ministry has drifted far off course? So let's continue talking about that. But maybe, are there examples that you've seen? Are there again, we're addressing the problem, but I want to be able to kind of paint a clearer picture for people so they can see, wait, maybe that's happening, because I think oftentimes leaders can get jaded. They're so focused on what they're trying to accomplish. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. They don't take a step back to see the bigger picture of what's happening. And both of you guys kind of hit on this. I mean, there's the faces of your people say a lot, or whether they're showing up or not, it says a lot. But when you've drifted off course, what does that look like from the inside out?
Well, I think one of the things is if you look at your bulletin,
Yep.
I guess we still call them. I don't know what we call
your
it.
Facebook group. Look
at your announcements.
Yes.
If your announcements are 3 pages long,
Oh man,
you know that you have gone too far. You're involved in too many things, and there's always this. I think there's a struggle. We want to reach as many people as we can, and everybody has a different interest. So, man, we got to provide all these kinds of things. But you know what? At the center of our mission is discipleship. From the front end to the back end.
Yep.
And so we have to stop and ask ourselves, is what I'm doing a part of bringing people to faith in Christ? Is there evidence that it's really making a difference in bringing people to Christ? And secondly, what am I doing with people who are followers of Christ? Am I helping them to grow more like Jesus every day? And that's not a bad way of asking the question and looking around and saying, okay, we're doing these 59 things, and about half of them have nothing to do with reaching people for Christ or discipling others.
It's really good.
Well, as you know, and Anthony said this, when you take the bulletin of the worship guide or whatever, and you see all this long list of activities. I remember reading one time that Will Rogers said that the government builds the roads and Baptist wears them out going to meetings. And there's a lot of truth to that. We can, Baptists are good at putting a lot of activities, a lot of things. And I think that, as I said, you begin to see people get fatigued. One of the things that I did in my ministry was that I made sure I had the people around me that also could speak into my life. And sometimes as pastors, we're so close to it. It's where we eat, we live, we breathe. And so sometimes you need people looking in, again, reminding all of us that, again, maybe your family is suffering. You're not spending the time there. And so you begin to see that. Well, if you begin to see that with your church family, and Anthony was so true, you see that you've got this person or many people doing so many things. They're tied in everywhere. Eventually, they are going to burn out. And next thing you know, you've lost even more because you've not been equipping. And I think it's important. Again, I think the why for me was important. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose behind it? Again, does it really tie us to the heart and the core of what our mission is as a church? And if it didn't, and I use that word again, you cut it. I'd rather have 3 things and accomplish them well to the glory of God than 33 things that you only did halfway, and many of them never got accomplished at all. It's kind of like having people. I'd rather have. I can do more with 5 people who were sold out to Jesus than 55 who wanted to play church.
Exactly.
So it's kind of the same principle.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is better.
I'm sitting here thinking about folks that might be listening, and there's the leader out there that's going, man, you guys are a bunch of slackers. He's fired up, think God's doing great things. It's like, let's charge the hill. Why are you wanting to slow down? We got to get people to get with it. We got to get people involved. And then I'm thinking about the other guy that's out there listening. It's going, I don't know if I can last another day. I feel like I'm pulling everybody along. We're running thin. I'm exhausted. I laugh when I'm talking to a minister and he says, I'm thinking about, I'm taking a part-time position. Can I just be honest with you? There's no such thing. There is no, when we ask someone to take a part-time position, it is not part-time.
Part-time pay. That's all it is.
That's all it is, part-time pay. And most of our ministers that are out there, most of them, I'm going to tell you, if you follow them around, they're like firefighters. They work 24/7. They don't ever get a day off at the fire station. They're available. Their phone sits by their bed. They're running 90-0. And that's in addition to trying to manage all of the quote programs that are out there. So I don't know who you are out there. And we're not saying we want to dumb it down. But what we are saying is simple is good. People have to understand it. You need to understand it. God is not the author of confusion. And if things are so overly complicated that you have to have a manual to get through it, there's something gone awry here. And so what we really are trying to advocate here is a simpler mindset. We're not talking about a stupid mindset. We're not talking about compromising. We're just talking about how can we simplify it. There's that old saying, KISS, right? Keep it simple. Silly. I didn't use the other word, but keep it simple. And so we have to be able to clearly articulate exactly what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to do it. So why are we so tempted? Why are we so tempted? Why do we tend to lean towards overcomplicating and resist simplifying? How can we simplify the calling beyond a full color brochure and a PowerPoint deck packed full of announcements. We interrupt this message to bring you 30 minutes of announcements and how you can get involved in what God is doing. I mean, why do we tend to lean towards that overcomplication? Why do we overcomplicate?
Well, I think because we think movement and a whirling dervish means that we are accomplishing a lot.
Mm.
It may mean we're accomplishing very little.
Mhm.
I'm going to get into some messy stuff related to this. I think that part of what happens, first of all, I think we have to ask ourselves, okay, what's the core of what we do? Well, core is worship, right? And small group, because that's what keeps us connected to one another. So if I were starting out analyzing whether I'm on point or not, that's where I'd start. I'd ask myself, okay, are we doing, Rick said it a minute ago, are we doing this with excellence? But I think one of the critical things in a lot of our churches is that we have bogged ourselves down by having 45 committees.
Mm.
And we have to add, we have to go to the church every time a committee makes a decision. And so I just stepped into the middle of a issue that some will not like very much, but I think simplifying is simplifying the structure of the church.
Good. That's good.
So, and giving more authority to smaller groups. That doesn't mean taking away congregational approval and that kind of thing, but we just don't have to vote on everything. We don't have to have 45 committees. We can bring that down, and that relieves a lot of time of people.
Mm-hmm.
So simplifying structure.
That's really good. Because that itself complicates. Again, when we're not just talking programs, we're talking an overcomplication of what really should be simple, right? Making disciples. Go make disciples. The other thing I was also thinking about too, and then Rick, you can jump in here. But when you guys were talking earlier, I think that what happens is we think the programs are leading to the increase, right? So we're like, oh, this is working. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing this, without recognizing we're supposed to be faithful with what God has called us to do. He takes care of the increase. And so we get married to a method. We get married to a certain way of doing it because we see the results, and then we forget, wait, it's God who's doing that. That might be a method for the moment, but it may not be a method for here. And so we'll touch on that a little bit later. But I was just thinking about how God gives us something, we do it, and then people start coming, and then we're like, okay, this has got to be it, instead of recognizing, wait, who's the source of that? Who's the one drawing the people? How about we focus on him and what he's calling us to do, instead of now relying on this, the program, the structure, the way we're doing what we're doing, to be the source, So,
Rick?
Well, guys, as I've said here listening, and I agree wholeheartedly with all of this. I think Anthony's right on. And, probably most of us, at least, I know for Anthony and I, we remember the day where every month we had a business meeting, you had to vote on everything. And we complicate it. We make things harder. And part of it is I think a trust. And I think sometimes it's people wanting to keep their thumb, to be able to control. If you really think about what we're talking about, and we get so busy, ministry is all about relationships. And
Right.
when we get so busy and so preoccupied doing programs, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, checking all the boxes, so it's just going through the motions. There is no relational equity there. None. It's gone, because it just becomes the work. And what suffers is the ministry, because you have to give the time, and you've got to give the space in anything that we're doing as a church to make sure it's tied back to relationships.
That's right. Amen.
That's good.
And we mess up. We do. We get so busy, we lose that sense of touch and feel. And one of the things I love about watching God's people is when I would see God's people, we talk about prayer. And most of the time we talk about it and do very little of it. But when I would see people that will just stop in church and put their arm around somebody in a hall and they're praying with them.
That's right.
Do we understand the significance of that? And used to remember that people would come to me and say, Pastor, would you pray with me about this or that? And I would say, sure, I will. But God taught me that when somebody asked me to pray for them, I stop right then, right there, and we pray.
That's right.
Because if it's important enough for them to ask me, it's important for me to pray for them.
That's good. Yep.
That's the relational equity. But listen, there have been times I have been so busy in church, leaving my office, my head's down, I'm on a mission, I've got to get to this meeting, I got to be here, I got to be there, and I didn't take the time to look up.
Mm.
And I see our churches doing that. We
Mhm.
get so busy on our way to accomplish, to sing, to do this, to preach, to teach, to facilitate, that we never take the time to look up and to see the person that's hurting, to see the person who may need a touch, who may need a hug, and so to me, that's what happens when we get so busy and we overprogram. We stop looking up, and what happens is, and I've said this before, I see ghosts of great potential Christians walking the halls of our churches,
Wow.
but we're too busy.
Mhm.
Wow. I think
Great
a principle that applies here is the old saying, are you a human doing or a human being?
Yeah.
And when we're over programmed, we're just doing, and we're not being the church.
Mhm.
You hear what I'm saying? And the
Yeah.
church is there to edify one another and build one another up. And if we're always focused on doing, and we're not being in the moment, we're not being relational, then we're missing the whole point of why we are, in fact, a body called according to his purposes.
Mhm.
Great word, Rick. Great word.
That's good. You know, I want to hit on the hardest part of the conversation because we've talked about this: eliminate, cut, get rid of, change, right? But it's not easy to do, right? Because tied with that is the potential to lose people, right? Lose people that are on those committees, that have lived their whole lives, multiple generations. My grandfather was on this committee and I'm on this committee now, right? There's sacred cows that have been a part of the church for so long. And so we're talking about when you eliminate this, you can lose people, create conflict, undo years of ministry relationships that were built around those programs. So the question I put before you is, how do you do it?
I think Rick should answer that question.
Thanks, Dr. J.
Yeah.
I love you too. Man, it's always hard because, people get tied to things. There's the emotional aspect of it. Like you said, my daddy, my mama. And I remember earlier we were talking about vision, and I remember when I took a church that was a downtown church, been in this building for almost 100 years, and, we were making changes. Um, for me, I had to go sit down with those people that had poured their life. Many of them had got married there, their kids got baptized there, they were saved there, all these kind of things. And it goes back again kind of to this vision aspect too. You have to sit down with them to help them see beyond themselves.
Mhm.
That it's not about them. It's about a legacy. It's about where we're going. Well, the same thing is true about programming. God used your dad or your grandpa to help us get to this point. But now God wants to take us to another part. So again, you have to help them to realize that it's not about a program. It's not about a building. It's not about this or that. It's all about this aspect of where's God calling us? What is God calling us to do as a people? And and I just discovered that there are times you do lose people, and you have to be okay with it. But God will always replenish because it's His church,
Mhm.
I think
and He
Rick,
will bring the right people to fill in the spots.
I think Rick is underscoring something that I think is so vital. Two things, really. What he expressed was the idea that when you're making change, that you are patient,
Hmm.
that you don't ram it down people's throats. I've seen churches. One of the biggest issues of our day is worship style.
Mhm.
How do you change worship style? Well, you as a new pastor can walk in and change it. And, you go, well, I'm the new pastor, and by George, God called me here, and if I'm going to be here, this is what we're going to do. And so in our churches, it'd be blowing out the choir,
Yep.
goodbye, don't
Yep.
need you anymore. And what you do is blow out a bunch of people.
Yep.
I mean, they just walk away from you.
Yep.
And so what Rick has emphasized that I think is so vital is that you're patient and you care enough to work with people along the line. Here's what I have found. Not everybody, but I think when you're just like talking about tearing down a building, I tell people, people say, well, I don't know if he's very brave or not. Well, if you tear down the 1929 Tabernacle of Falls Creek,
Man.
okay. But here's the thing, you caring about people, loving people enough. Again, it goes back when we did a podcast on vision. It's going back and listening to them, giving them opportunity to express themselves. What I have found is that when you do that with people, for example, worship style, senior adults, if you sit down and talk with them and you say, you know what, we want to reach younger adults and this is the way it's going to happen, and young people, senior adults, I love Gaither music, but I'll give up Gaither music in order to see teenagers walk the aisle and college students get involved and young families coming and getting engaged. And if I have to change my worship style, I just do it. So, and that's when you do that, it takes a big kind of thing. I'm not saying, by the way, we ought to do it with choirs. I'm just saying that's an example.
Right.
But you take time and you care about people. Everybody won't go with you when you change something or you eliminate something, but you'll have a better shot, I think, if you care.
That's good.
Well, and I think that's the heart of what I think we've been talking about. All of us know, we've heard the stories. I've had pastors share with me, that, they had a vision, they had a direction they wanted to go. People didn't want to go, and they'd almost kind of look at it and go, "Hey, listen, if you don't like the direction we're going, don't let the screen door hit you as you're going out the door." They didn't care. And I've seen it.
Absolutely.
I have a problem with that. I'll be honest with you. Now, are you going to lose some people? Yeah, because not everybody's going to do it. But I'm like Anthony. When you care about people and you love people and you really put that relational equity in, at least you've done everything that you can do.
That's good.
To tell the story and let people have a buy-in and let them ask you questions. It's when you just shut the door and go, "Hey, full steam ahead. I'm going to do this no matter what, and y'all can pick up the wounded." And we've become like a bull in a china closet. And I just don't think God honors that. And but I think when you share your heart, you let the people have a buy-in. Most people will. Or I'll tell you a quick story. I had a guy that when we did all this move and relocation, everything, I had made the statement one time in a message. I said, we did not have a no vote, and we didn't. We had not any no votes in the relocation, the building, everything. Well, one day, this guy had been a member of the church for umpteen years, was a charter member, and he said, "Pastor," he said, I've heard you make that statement, but he said, "I just want you to know I didn't vote." You're right, there was no vote, but I didn't vote at all. And then he said this to me. I've sat back now. This had been 10 years since we'd been in the new building. And he said, "I look back now and I wished I had, because it was the greatest decision this church ever made."
Amen.
And so God brought him along. And when he passed away, I shared that story. So, there are sometimes you see people, and there's times people will leave, and sometimes those people will come back.
Yeah.
And I had that happen because they realize, we're a season, we left, right or wrong, whatever, but we believe God wants us back here to be a part of what God's doing in life in this church. And you just embrace them and love them, and go on. So that's the part of caring and listening. You didn't mistreat them. You didn't badmouth them. You just loved them.
So as we put a bow on this podcast today, I can't help again but think about folks that are listening. And if we are advocating for simplicity, if we are appealing for our ministry leaders to at least consider simplification, what is a word, a sentence or two that you two guys would share? How would you appeal to them to consider not more programming? And that's not to say that there shouldn't be more programming, but if there's going to be more programming, it might mean that some things need to maybe go away because we do reach a capacity. But how would you convince or try to appeal to someone and saying simple might be better than more?
I think for me, I would say this: know the heart of God, and that you've spent time at His feet, and know the heart of your people because you spent time with your people.
Hmm.
And when those two come together, it's a pretty good marriage. And you you may stub your toe every once in a while, but boy, when you know the heart of God and the heart of your people, and you come together in love, uh, God does amazing things. And I think that would be one of the key words I would say.
I don't think I can improve on that. I think Rick has said it eloquently and powerfully. I think that keep to your mission and your vision that God has planted in your heart and run everything through that filter. And I think you'll find that things will eliminate themselves because they don't fit.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. The Lord's not going to give you a burden so heavy that it's nothing you can carry. It may challenge you. He may give you stronger legs. He may give you more strength, but He knows what you're capable of, and He may want to have other people join you. But it may be, sometimes we say this, that the enemy of great is good. And just because something's good doesn't mean it's great or what we're called to do. And maybe somebody has an idea that doesn't necessarily fit where you're at, and they may need to take that and maybe bless somebody else with it, bloom where you're planted type of thing. You, our listener, we want to encourage you, if you haven't considered it, do give some thought to Tom Rainer's book, Simple Church. Check it out. It may be more on the topic that you may want to look into and read. It's a good read. It's a good book, and we certainly endorse
and it's
Tom.
a simple book.
It's a simple book. Exactly. Absolutely. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today on this edition of the Winning in Ministry broadcast. This podcast is made possible by Edify Leaders, which really provides donor-funded coaching to pastors and ministry leaders. And it's committed to helping them thrive in life and leadership. And if you're somebody that's listening, maybe you're not involved in ministry full-time, and you know somebody who would want to get behind the work of that ministry, by all means, reach out to us, let us know, because let's face it, our pastors, our ministers, they need encouragement. And that's what Edify Leaders is all about, is just coming alongside ministry leaders and pastors and encouraging them in life and work. So to learn more about the movement, to learn more about Edify Leaders, simply go over to edifyleaders.org.
You've been listening to the Winning in Ministry podcast, made possible by Edify Leaders. Edify Leaders strengthens ministers for exponential impact. When ministers stay strong, ministries don't just survive, they thrive. Learn more about Edify Leaders at edifyleaders.org. Catch all of the Winning in Ministry podcast episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Subscribe today and share with your friends.